That's part of the communication issue. But if this is a county issue, I think the city can do the best it can, but it's up to the county.
Thank you, Shelley.
As the city would not have direct oversight over the county's comprehensive plan, I think that it would be a recommendation only, but this is another area where joint city-county commission meetings would be helpful in terms of expressing areas of concern. So I think that once that happens, then recommendations could be made.
Thank you. Liz?
I agree with Shelley that basically it's something that, again, that if we have a good city-county relationship, that it's something then that the city can provide input and recommendations and suggestions to the county about staying within their comprehensive plan.
Liz, keep the microphone, please. How different are you now from when you began your campaign?
Well, I think it has been truly a learning experience. I have met so many different people in the course of my campaign and learned so many different things about what some of their issues are in the community. And so I think all of these things will serve to make me a much better city commissioner.
Thank you, Shelley.
I get to do things like this on a larger basis. It's been a better opportunity to get to understand the collective views of our city. In terms of being different, I think that through this process I've become more informed because I've reached out to our city residents and our counterparts in our neighborhoods and our advisory boards. That's an extension of who I am in terms of being a problem solver. So I think that it's more enhanced. I think I'm also more humble in wanting to do the best job for the residents of our city. I think that I am also more attuned to the specific issues that our city faces. And so I just appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you. Arlene?
Well, running a campaign and becoming a new city commissioner happened at the same time. So I've had quite a few opportunities. I'd like to think I'm wiser. I'd like to think I'm more compassionate toward the requests that people make for their neighborhoods and for their downtown. I think I'm more business savvy. I've spoken to people about what needs to be done so that certain business decisions can be made. You can't ask people to work for nothing. I'm more tired, and I'm more excited about what can be done with Sarasota. There are so many possibilities that I think most people don't realize because you don't have this incredible opportunity to meet the people who live in Sarasota. The one thing I know about Sarasota more than I knew before all of this started is that there are more remarkable...
No, that's going to be part of the next question.
Okay, later.
I've become an agent for change. And the change that Eileen and I have wrought on the City Commission is noticeable and tangible. It was a City Commission wracked with turmoil and ill humor, and that's stopped. We're now a collegial body of problem solvers, and I and Eileen have helped make that happen. Am I different? An old editor once told me, he said, the more people you talk to, the better the story. Well, by now I've talked to probably at least 2,000 people I've never met before. Knocking on their doors, getting buttonholed at Publix. And the story of Sarasota that they are telling me just gets better and better. I think the same level of collegiality that we have brought to the City Commission, I'm starting to see with the people that I meet and I talk to every day as I go campaigning.
Okay, you're getting into the next question. And I'm going to start with you. Have you changed your mind on some city issues based on new understandings?
Yes, I think we should do away with the CRA.
Thank you.
Just a joke. Just a joke. And Bobby Jones got first there. So, yes, we just lost the election there, didn't we?
And you're on tape.
Yes, and I'm on tape too. Have I changed my position on something? I'm probably a little more understanding of the duties and requirements of being a police officer. And that may seem hard to understand. As a reporter, I've done thousands of police stories, and I've been to crime scenes and bodies on the beds and so forth and so on. But I've just become more sensitized as our police department has become more sensitized. This community policing thing is more than just a feel-good effort to beat down crime. It really does work, but it increases the workload on the uniformed officer enormously, because they have to be more understanding, more sensitive, and more caring to the people that they are policing. And that, I think, has been the biggest change for me, is a greater sensitivity to the needs of the police force.
Thank you, Eileen.
Have I changed my mind on certain specific issues? Yes. As these issues come in front of the commission, you do your best to read the 1,000 pages they bless you with once a week. And based on what you read, you form an opinion. But from there, you talk to the staff, and those are the people who basically gave you the background information. And then you hear from residents, and then you hear from them the night of the commission meeting. They come by the scores if there's a really good issue. And you better know the reasons you came to your first decision. They had better be statistics. For me, as a trial attorney, I want statistics, I want evidence, I want real reasons to make a decision, not to base it just on emotion. But I have had my mind changed by people who have come in front of the commission and brought their statistics and their evidence and their photos. And that's why, as I said earlier, I will never have my mind set in stone until I hear the last person speak to the city commission. And that's the point at which I look at the two columns and see how they add up.
Thank
So,
you.
yes.
Shelley?
I don't think that I've necessarily changed my mind. I think that I've grown more informed throughout the race. One of the areas that I needed to do a little bit more research was on the process for planning and zoning and development, and how that process can be accessible to all of our residents and all of our neighbors. I've learned a tremendous amount about how that process works throughout being a candidate in this election, and I think that that has helped me to talk about what we talked about earlier in terms of the closeness between all parts of our neighborhood. So I think that it's been an enhancement in terms of what I've learned and how I see things differently. That is not a black and white issue. Those administrative rules are there for a reason. They help to guide the work of the commission. They help to alleviate some of the responsibilities that the 5 city commissioners have, but they also bring to the table neighbors and developers and business owners to come together and have a discussion about what's best for the city. In the beginning, I thought that those two worlds were way far apart. I've learned through the process that they're closer than we think.
Thank you. Liz?
No, in going through this process, I really have not changed my position on any of the issues that I had going in. But what I have done is I've learned more about those issues and the things that can happen and the improvements we can make. And I'm very excited about having the opportunity to make the contribution to Sarasota, which is now the happiest city in the U.S. I hope you saw that. And I'm very excited about the possibilities, and I've learned more about how to make those things happen.
I have one more question, and then it will be almost 9 o'clock. Now, I don't know how much you're prepared to stay beyond that, but I'd be glad to. We're obviously not going to get into the questions that people have written down. I'd like to I'd like to ask this last question, starting with Liz. how does the current plan, and I'd like to be particular about the differences, not philosophy, but the actual differences between the two. How does the current plan to deal with homelessness compare to the Marbut plan?
Well, it is very, very similar to the Marbut plan. I think what may be different is what it looks like in terms of a shelter. The city plan is looking for a way to have organizations sponsor a person temporarily and maybe a small 25-bed transitional center, but looking at the different organizations to step up and sponsor a homeless person for a year. And if we can get 100 people to do that, then until we can get them into permanent housing. So I think that's one of the ways that it differs, rather than just a large come-as-you-are shelter, making it just on a temporary basis.
Thank you. Shelley?
There appear to be similarities, but differences that I did observe from the 8-point plan that were presented was a specific discussion about a mid-county street diversion center. Throughout the campaign, I've talked about how can the entire county come together to provide services so that no one part of our city feels the burn or the hurt. I think that this particular discussion kind of takes the next step as to where the Marbut plan left off. I think it's an addition to what was proposed, but I think it's a specific addition. I also think, given the access to the Health and Human Resources database to law enforcement, I think that that's an expansion. I think that can also be translated to mental health providers having access as well. Those bring the services together. So I think that those are two differences from the original plan.
Thank you. Eileen?
The plans are entirely different, and trust me, I read the Marbut plan, I went to the Pinellas shelter, I saw it, and I fought it. The Marbut plan was to put an $8 million shelter in the city, by the way, next to the deep injection well, which was going to cost the city another $500,000 to fence that off. It was a permanent jail diversion program that would have taken prisoners that would otherwise be housed in jail out of jail and would alleviate the county's need for additional jail cells. Taking them out of jail is a terrific thing. However, shelters do not work. Again, I told you that I am in favor of statistics and evidence. The evidence is permanent shelters do not work. You need to use what's called a housing first model, which puts people in a housing unit and then you give them services. That is what the Bar-Wing plan is about. It's about a temporary shelter, just basically to sort people out so that you know who needs what kind of services. This is only for the chronically homeless. It is not for families. It's for those who are the most difficult to reach and to treat. The Housing First program is proven around the country. All you have to do is look it up, and you'll see there are statistics there telling you that Housing First works. Shelters do not work. People wind up back on the street. The Marbut plan was basically just jail diversion and permanent sheltering. This is radically different. It's a scatter approach to put various housing units all over the county, and possibly in the city of Venice, possibly in the city of Northport. We are not the only city in this county. So it is a shared approach for the entire county to deal with what are approximately 1,000 homeless in the county of Sarasota. There are many, many other differences, but I'm getting the eagle eye here, and I will pass this on.
Thank you very much.
Well, I would have yielded my time to her because everything she said is right in tune with my thinking as well. There's a triage center. It's relatively small, 40 beds at any one time to help separate out people who may need help for mental health issues, people who may need help for addiction issues, veterans who are suffering from PTSD. Every one of these homeless people is an individual and does not need to be treated like they go to a camp someplace where they get warehoused for the rest of their lives, because that's what a Marbut-style shelter basically ends up doing. So everything she said is right. Housing First as a model works. It's cheaper than the Marbit style of mass camp housing. So it's more efficient and it's more humane, and it actually works. It gets people off the streets and back into the mainstream, not 100% of them, but a significant fraction of them. But what's not to like about this? It's radically different than what the plan we saw before. This plan actually has a historical, a body of evidence that makes me believe it's viable and workable. But what it needs, and we don't yet have, and we need to identify, is a philanthropic base to provide the Housing First element. Because the city's not going to go out and round up housing for 1,000 people. It needs a philanthropic base in order to get this started. And every Housing First effort I've seen has used that as the funding vehicle.
Thank you very much. I'm very disappointed that we don't have a lot more time because I have additional questions and I'm not going to be able to get to yours. However, we have some other information I do want to talk to you about. The MPO staff was here this evening and met with the Cona board in order to ask us to participate in their surveys leading to the long-range transportation plan, which is numbered 2040. No, I'm not going to be here in 2040, but they do a 5-year update, just like people do with comprehensive plans. And they would like all of our members and our guests to participate in their surveys and the information. They have created a website that you can go onto and participate, and it's called strategicmobilityplan.com. Now, I will post this on our website. On our website, we've got a resources page for government, and there's a listing for the MPO that has a lot of information about it. I will put that on our website, and I really appreciate you all coming in and staying until it's 9 o'clock, and I'd like you to applaud our candidates. Thank you. Now, I'm sure that you can ask specific questions for the next few minutes before I close the doors and I'll lock you all out.